Chapter 10. Harry Potter versus the Department of Mysteries. Hermione Granger woke to a rapping sound. She yawned, grumbling softly as she padded across her bedroom and opened her window. A barn owl fluttered inside and perched on a night table, a letter clutched in its talons. Hermione waited a moment by the window, enjoying the breeze against her face before following the creature. She murmured, "I don't suppose this could have waited for morning." The owl chittered angrily, and she smiled as she retrieved the letter. "I guess not." She felt carefully for the flaps in the darkness, opening it slowly but without the slightest tearing, almost as if she were a spy sneaking a peek at someone else's mail. She unfolded the letter, then frowned. "Blank." Hermione turned to the owl. "You traveled all this way just to give a blank letter. Well, I suppose it might not have been that far. Then again, I was in Scotland this morning and traveling for hours. Were you following me all that time, or did you just know that I would be here when you landed?" "I mean, really, how do owls track people? Don't overthink it. That's the reason why we had to switch to owls in the first place." Hermione jumped, I darting wildly around the room before settling on where I leaned against her windowsill. "Harry, I didn't see you there." I frowned. "Then who were you talking to?" I think she raised an eyebrow, though it was difficult to be certain in the dark. "The owl, of course." "That's crazy," I said. Hermione raised a hand, pointer finger extended and quite ready to argue with me. She lowered it, however, upon realizing that she could never win. "Speaking of crazy, what are you doing here?" I figured we should break into the Department of Mysteries. "Tonight," she squeaked. "The guards should be light, and there won't be many witnesses. It's as good a time as any." "So when you said, 'I'll get you when the time is right,' you meant tonight?" I'm quite certain she raised an eyebrow that time. I said, "Well, I wasn't originally planning on it, but apparently the Dursleys moved. I realized that I didn't have any place to sleep, so I decided not to. I'm thinking we'll head out now, get into the ministry before dawn, and then go grab breakfast." "Your family abandoned you." Trust Hermione to latch on to the least important part of my statement. "They'll probably be back in a few weeks, so obliviated that they occasionally forget how to breathe." She clapped her hands over her mouth, eyes wide. "I legitimately have no idea why anyone thinks she cares about things. Her acting is atrocious." "That's awful. Who would do that?" "I dunno. Dumbledore. It's usually Dumbledore. I could find them first, I suppose, if I really wanted to, but I just don't like them that much. Now about going to the ministry." "Right, yes," she mumbled. "How did you get here anyway? I didn't even know you had my address." "I don't." I followed the owl. Hermione stood there for a moment, blinking. "You what?" "It's really simple, actually. You just write someone a letter, give it to an owl, and then fly behind them. The owl doesn't care, and they're more reliable than most tracking charms." "Oh, is there a way to stop owls from finding you then?" I shrugged. "I suppose, but I don't know why anyone would. You wouldn't get your letters. But if you were a convicted felon, then people could find you this way." "Theoretically." "Like Sirius Black," she said, looking a bit desperate. "Surely he stopped owls from following him." "I don't know why he would. He probably wants his letters, and I doubt he has a permanent address. That's just begging to be caught." Hermione sighed heavily. "Are we getting Ron then?" "Oh, I've already got him. He's under the cloak, outside your window." I paused for a moment, considering the situation. He should probably take it off while we get on the broom, though. If you misjudged the distance and fell 2 stories, we'd probably have to delay our mission. She twisted her lips thoughtfully. "The broom, as in only one. Of course, how else would we stay under the cloak? Besides, you and I aren't any good at flying, so it seems like the safest option." "Galloping gargoyles, Ron, keep it steady," I shouted. "I can't," Ron whined. "There's too much weight on it. I don't think it's supposed to hold more than one person." "If we die, it's entirely your fault," I informed him. Hermione poked me in the ribs, saying firmly, "We are not going to die." I snorted. "Of course not. But if we did, it would be Ron's fault." "Why did we have to fly all the way to London anyway?" Ron asked. I rolled my eyes, though the effect was entirely lost since I was clinging to Ron's back and Hermione had her face buried in mine. "Do you have any better ideas?" "Yeah, sure I do. We could have taken the night bus, or flewed, or talked Bill into apparating us. He's visiting and he wouldn't have snitched. Enough with your whining. Ron, don't make me regret not taking Ginevra in your place. It's not like she didn't offer." "Why didn't you take her then?" Hermione asked. "She annoys me. Besides, she's willing to cover for Ron and pretend to be him, if necessary. As slowly as this is going, I suspect it will be." Hermione's arms suddenly tensed around me. Oh, I am going to be in so much trouble. What have you done this time? I asked. Nothing, she snapped. Well, just this. But my parents don't know that I'm out, and they're bound to be upset. Just tell them you had a surprise sleepover with Ron and me. She giggled, the motion causing an uncomfortable tickling sensations by my shoulder blades. You want me to tell my parents that I snuck out of the house to stay the night with two teenage boys? I think I'd be better off telling them we were stealing a prophecy to defeat Lord Voldemort. At least then they'll be too confused to be angry. I think that's London, Ron interrupted, steering us downward. After 3 hours of wandering the city and poking our heads into telephone booths, we found the entrance to the Ministry of Magic. We gathered under the invisibility cloak before stepping inside the red box. Nothing happened for several seconds. Did we pick the wrong one again? Hermione whispered. I shook my head. No, this has got to be it. One of us will have to get out and dial the number. Ron immediately shifted the cloak so that he could scramble to the phone. At our startled faces, he grinned. I figure it's a lot like being bait. He dialed 62,442. A woman's tinny voice said, Welcome to the Ministry of Magic. Who is this? Ron returned to his usual oafish demeanor. Percy Weasley, I shouted. What? He squeaked. No one will notice the difference, I assured him. Hermione said, I hardly think, What is your business here today, Mr. Weasley? The voice asked. Ron snorted, probably brown-nosing. Thank you. Please take the badge and attach it to the front of your robes. He reached down, grabbed a chunky silver badge from the chute and burst into laughter. What is it? Hermione asked. Ron just shook his head, which had turned bright red. With trembling hands, he affixed the badge to his robes. Ron, I demand that you tell me what is so funny, I said. The redhead, still grinning, turned so that the badge faced us, its blocky letters easily legible. It read, Percival Weasley, meeting the minister. Not entirely certain what was funny about that, I stayed silent. It was probably a Weasley thing. The voice continued as we shuddered to a stop. Visitor to the ministry, you are required to submit to a search and present your wand for registration at the security desk, which is located at the far end of the atrium. Ron nervously glanced around the ministry's hall. He muttered, should I go to the security desk or? I replied. That's what the voice said. But is it a good idea to just walk up to the guard with my badge saying I'm Percy? Ron, trust me, no one will notice. His eyes darted around nervously. But I'm sorry, I thought you were a Gryffindor. I guess the hat just put you there because of your family. Ron immediately walked towards the security desk, head held very high. We scurried after him. That was a really low blow, Harry, Hermione hissed. I know, it was brilliant. I smirked at my own cleverness. There's no way the guard will actually think he's his brother. I chuckled, raising a hand towards the guard. Confundus. The guard looked up suddenly, as if confused about where he was. He squinted at Ron's badge. Percy. Yes, Ron said stiffly. Of course. Kind of early for you to be here, isn't it? Well, you know me. Ron let out a nervous chuckle. I believe in punctuality. It's really important to me. Right, yes, I remember that, the guard said. Go on, then. Ron nodded, stomping away with us at his heels. He asked, What just happened? You witnessed me being right, I told him. Harry confronted the guard. Hermione paused for a moment. Actually, how did you do that? We aren't supposed to do magic over the summer. They can only catch you if you use a wand. You can do wandless magic, Ron asked. I said, I can do lots of things. I'm Harry Potter. Of course you are, Hermione grumbled. The Department of Mysteries is downstairs. I beamed, slapping her on the back. I knew you would eventually admit to working there. I'm not. There's a map right there. Oak rustled as she flung her arm up to point. Sure it is, Hermione. It's right there. Just look at it. Ron, can you tell him? Ron frowned. I don't see it anywhere. I'm pointing right at it, she cried. You're invisible, he said. Hermione blinked, earlier frustration fallen off her face. Oh, right, I am. We should probably just go downstairs. So if we just mark every door that we try, Hermione explained, we'll know where to go when the room spins again. We can't mark the doors. I cried, arms flung out so that the invisibility cloak temporarily obscured the walls. People will know we've been here. Hermione pouted. It would be a magical mark, obviously. Like that would make any difference. This is the Department of Mysteries. They solve magical mysteries all the time. Ron frowned, mumbling. Actually, I think they're named that because... Silence. Hermione, you're being particularly unhelpful tonight. Do you want us to be caught? She pursed her lips in obvious guilt. Of course not. Are you sure? I know we're breaking into your workplace. It isn't. But that doesn't change the fact that you're supposed to be pretending to be my friend, and selling out your friends to your coworkers is not okay. Hermione appeared lost, for once unable to come up with a clever lie. I'm not even sure where to start in disputing that. It's not worth it, Hermione, Ron said. So, what are we supposed to do if we don't mark the doors then? I flung my invisibility cloak over my shoulders. Obviously, we open all the doors and never close them. Oh, all right then, Ron said, turning the nearest doorknob like the Gryffindor he is. We split up to open more doors in a shorter time. Behind the first was some sort of planetarium, and the second contained something which resembled Lucius's hair. The third room held a pillar and curtain. Almost immediately, I decided that I hated it. It had been a while since that had happened, and I was resisting the urge to slam the door shut when Ron spoke. It's kind of weird that they don't let people see prophecies about them, if you ask me. I shrugged, still glaring at the curtain. I could feel a headache forming. They might let you, actually. I never checked. You mean that we didn't need to break into the ministry at all? Hermione asked, clearly unhappy about something. Perhaps she'd stumbled onto one of Dumbledore's secret and no doubt insidious projects. I mean that I never checked. The way I see it, asking would do absolutely no good. If we don't get caught, it doesn't matter. If it's not against the rules and we get caught, then we'll all have a good laugh about it. If it is against the rules, however, then we made the right decision and asking someone would have just put them on guard. Hermione frowned. I still think, bloody hell are those brains. Ron yelped. Enough, Ron. We'll get you one on the way out. I opened another door, absent-mindedly casting a stunner on the creature inside. And we'll grab Harry a hot, Hermione said. I furrowed my brow. Why would I need one of those? Harry, you just made that joke, Hermione said, looking distressed. It hasn't even been a minute. Seeing that I'd lost all interest in responding, the girl sighed and opened another door. What are the chances that the right door would be the very last one we tried? I said. Hermione frowned. And 12 doors. So 1 out of 12 times 1 out of 11, so that's... I wasn't actually asking. I was just complaining, I clarified. Ron took that as his cue. With a tired grin, he said, Good, I can't wait to be out of here. I don't know what you've got to whine about, I said. I'm the one who nearly drowned. His Weasley face reddened. You dragged me under, too. Only because you grabbed me. I was trying to save you. Well, clearly you weren't doing a very good job of it. Hermione snapped. Stop fighting. We need to get the prophecy before the morning rush comes in and my parents realize that I snuck out. Fine, I muttered. We stepped through the doorway and looked up, and over some more at the seemingly endless rows of shelves holding silvery orbs. Bloody hell, Ron said. How are we supposed to find anything in this? Hermione fretted. I don't see a directory anywhere. It might be alphabetical, Ron said. Possibly, but by what? Would it be under Trelawney or Potter? Or maybe it landed under Voldemort's name, and I don't even know what that is. Riddle, I said. How do you know that? I killed him. That okay, fine, that still doesn't change the fact that there are thousands of orbs and several possible organizational structures. Ron laid a hand on her shoulder, laughing. Hermione. Why, yeah, she asked, sounding somewhat dazed. Calm down. We'll find it, Ron said. Probably. Right, she mumbled, flushing with embarrassment at her panic. I declared, I'm already far ahead of you both. I raised a hand towards the looming rack of prophecies and said, Akio, the prophecy about Harry Potter. All was silent for a moment. Then there was a sudden crash and a guttural voice. Then another and another. Then 1,000 extra crashes and voices joined them as an entire shelf hit the floor. That point, I spotted my summoned orb flying through the shelf nearest us just as the shelf to its left fell atop it. I grabbed Hermione's arm, she grabbed Ron, and we all ran for it, my prophecy following close behind. Why did you do that? Hermione cried. We didn't have time to figure out how they were organized, I said, pulling her, and ran into the hallway outside of the department. But you could have used a point me spell or something. I'm not sure if I can do that wandlessly, I said. Also, I hadn't thought of it, but that didn't seem worthy of mention. Hermione gripped my hand painfully, fingernails digging into my skin as we waited in the elevator. You didn't even check. You just destroyed the entire roomful of prophecies. It was wicked, Ron whispered. Thank you, I said. We stepped from the elevator, confunding the night guard in passing. No, don't you dare encourage him, Ron, Hermione said. This is not all right. We broke several laws tonight and destroyed irreplaceable objects, and we are going to be in so much trouble. Not if you don't tell your boss, I said. She growled low in her throat. I don't have a boss. Then we'll be fine, I announced, pulling the broom from my pocket and unshrinking it. But due to good fortune and quick thinking, we were able to escape with both the prophecy and no property damage, Hermione finished, breathing a bit heavily to make up for the last several minutes of talking. Her parents exchanged a glance. With a small nod at her husband, Mrs. Granger turned to Hermione. Sweetie, if you have a boyfriend, you know you can tell us, right? We won't be upset. Mr. Granger coughed. Well, maybe a little, she amended. Hermione blushed, sputtering. I do not have a boyfriend. Harry doesn't even understand what being a girl means, and Ron is not my boyfriend. I was telling the truth, really. These things happen in the wizarding world. Is this what you do at school every year? Mr. Granger asked, scowling. Well, not all the time, Hermione muttered. Usually we study. Ron said, well, you do. She elbowed him in the ribs, but something like this happens every couple of months. It's slightly less often for the other houses, I said. Hermione asked, how do you even know that? Ginevra talks to them. Merlin knows why. Also, I used to be a Slytherin, which is more about ancient secrets and politics. So all that tripe about a prophecy was true? Mr. Granger asked. Yes, Hermione said. I wouldn't have said it if it was a lie. I was completely certain that was a lie. And you believe whatever that crystal ball says. He continued, gesturing towards the misty orb in my hands. Divination is a perfectly respectable subject, I declared. Hermione said, we have differing opinions on that. What matters is that Voldemort thinks that the crystal ball is right, and it may possess information that will help us against him. Mr. Granger nodded sharply. Has it then? Hermione blinked. What? Given good information? What does it say, hun? Mrs. Granger prodded. We haven't exactly heard it yet, Hermione said. The wind was loud, and it was dark out, and Harry kept shouting that he was going to drop it. Ron needed to be prepared so that he could catch it. Ron turned red, presumably with pride this time. We can listen to it now, I suppose, Hermione mumbled. She glanced from her parents to Ron and me, then back again. I said, that was a cue for you two to leave. No, it wasn't, Hermione cried. Really, because I was pretty sure this time. I think you were right, Ron said. Thank you, Ron. Just play it, please. After a moment, she repeated testily, please. You never told me how to do it, I said. Fine. Tap it. Of course you would know how because you're a secret. She raised a hand to silence me, apparently not wanting her parents to know that their lives were a carefully constructed lie to support a deeply undercover ministry worker. Tap it with your wand. Would that count as doing magic over the summer? Ron asked. I'm not sure, Hermione said. Ron, since you brought up such an important point, I award you the honor of playing the prophecy. I'm not that dumb, mate. I don't carry my wand over the summer, so either you do it or all of our deaths are your fault. Your deaths? Mrs. Granger asked weakly. Harry has a dark sense of humor, Hermione said. Actually, I never joke. I mean everything I say, I said. Ron paled. You what? Kidding, I was kidding. I wasn't kidding. Ron shakily tapped the orb with his wand, and it split into two halves, a wispy Sybil Trelawney peering at us from between them. She spoke in a deep, gravelly voice. The one with the power to vanquish the Dark Lord approaches, born to those who have thrice defied him, born as the seventh month dies. I nodded. I knew that part. And the Dark Lord will mark him as his equal, but he will be his own undoing, and either must die at the hand of the other, for neither can live while the other survives. The one with the power to vanquish the Dark Lord will be born as the seventh month dies. That's great, Ron said. What do you mean? Mr. Granger asked, frowning. It says that you know who gets rid of himself. And Hermione thought we had to do it too, Mrs. Granger said. Sweetie. At the same moment, Hermione said, Ron, that isn't actually what it. The two shared a look, and with a tip of the elder's head, Hermione continued, That's not what it says. It says that he shall be his own undoing. It never says that he is Voldemort. It could just be Harry messing his own life up because he was acting like Harry. Or it might mean that Voldemort was his own undoing because he marked Harry as his equal, which means that Harry still has to be the one who defeats him. I growled in frustration. The prophecy might also consider us the same person, because we are, in that case, either of us is completely free to kill the other. What's the point of a prophecy if it doesn't tell you exactly what to do? No point, really, Ron said. I think I hate divination now. I've hated it since third year, Ron said. Usually I would say that all school topics have merit if you actually put in effort and try to learn, Hermione said, but divination is just terrible. Like Muggle studies, I agreed. Harry, she shouted, it's not bigoted if I'm talking about the class. Right, Mr. Granger, the man smiled. I don't know enough about the topic to say. See, your dad agrees with me. Why do you have to be such a terrible daughter, Hermione, sneaking out of the house, lying, arguing with your poor father? Hermione pouted and Mrs. Granger said, You're not a terrible daughter, but we are going to have a talk about this. After my friends leave, right? Hermione asked, eyes wide and deceptively innocent. All right, her mother agreed. Hermione glanced in our direction with some emotion or another. Well, I can tell when I'm not wanted, I said. Come on, Ron said. I don't think she really wants us to go. No, she was pretty obvious about it. Besides, Ginevra has probably just finished playing herself and you during breakfast. She's no doubt exhausted. Ron winced. Right, yeah, bye, Hermione. Bye, Ron, she sighed, staring miserably at her parents. Maybe Ron was right after all. There's a first time for everything, I suppose. I was under attack. Get off of me, I cried, shaking my body in the hopes of dislodging the arms wrapped around it. But her grip was too solid. Nice to see you too, Harry, Hermione said, and released me from her hug. I rubbed at my arms in an attempt to disrupt the continued sensation of touch. Warily, I glanced around Hermione's bedroom. Her mother had shown a similar tendency towards unwarranted bodily assaults. Do you have to do that every time? I demanded. It's only been a week. She pinched her lips, head raised haughtily. I was worried about you, you prat. You didn't say goodbye, you didn't take your trunk, and when I tried to send an owl, it got confused and kept circling back. Then I sent a letter to Ron and found out that he hadn't seen you since you left to visit me. Where have you been? In the trunk. Sorry. I opened it, gesturing towards the comfortable apartment within. It's magically expanded. You've been living in a trunk, she said faintly. It seemed like a sound investment since property values keep rising. How do you eat, Darby? The house elf appeared, only to pop away again at my dismissive gesture. So you're stealing then, she said flatly. Darby is stealing. I am accepting gifts, I said. Hermione shook her head and then peered into the compartment. I just assumed you'd be with Ron. If you told me that you really didn't have any place to go, you could have stayed here. I chuckled. That's what I've been doing. In the guest room, Harry. Her hair fluffed up like a cat's coat. I frowned, glancing outside her bedroom door. I don't know if I would like that. Your guest room's pretty small. She raised an eyebrow. You've been living in a trunk, which is still bigger than your guest room. Hermione began to pace, footfalls heavy on the hardwood floor. My trunk shuddered with every step, and my bookcase rattled within. Suddenly the girl exclaimed, Is it smoking? Well, I have to air the potion's fumes sometime, or they start to build up. I've tried to remedy the situation through spells, but that tends to set off some of the more delicate brews. I still hadn't fixed the hole in the floor from my last attempt at Felix Felicis. There is absolutely no way this is safe, Hermione muttered. You're thinking like a muggle, Hermione, I said as I descended once again into my new home. I am not, she said. Also, there's nothing wrong with that. Sure there isn't, Hermione, I chuckled, waving my hand as the roof latched behind me. Sure there isn't. I hopped out of my trunk, squinting at the unexpected sunlight. I squawked indignantly. Did you move me? Hermione smirked. No. I was clearly at the burrow, and Ron waved at me from beside her. You liar. Now I'll have to ward the trunk against your meddling. You can't ward something against being picked up, Harry, she sighed. I gestured sharply with my hand, missing my wand terribly. Really, have you ever tried? You can't just assume that everything you read in books is true, you know. Sometimes the authors are scheming, like you. Hermione rolled her eyes. Yes, I'm sure. Now Ron has something to tell you. Right, Ron. Ah, right, he said. Mate, you really shouldn't be living in a trunk. Don't let Hermione bully you, I said. Your home is perfectly nice. It's not a shoebox, he snapped. Besides, this isn't like that. My uncle had one of those trunks, but the charms broke when he and all his things were inside. They had to bury him in it. Do you see, Harry? Hermione said. This is very dangerous and you shouldn't risk it. Ron's uncle was probably doing something stupid. Yeah, hanging around in a trunk, Ron muttered, and messed up the charms. Besides, I spent half my money on this trunk and it's non-refundable. Hermione twisted her lips, skeptically asking, half your money. My 1,000 galleons from the Triwizard tournament. That's kind of a weird way to put it, isn't it? Ron asked. I mean, it's like you're not thinking about your parents' money at all. Weren't the Potters rich? I paused. It never occurred to me to check. I'll have to inquire about this. I retreated into my trunk to write a letter, Ron and Hermione's horrified protests following me inside. Dear Dumbledore, I must confess that your scheme to steal my parents' money was brilliant. Now that I have discovered it, however, I request that you return my inheritance in full. If you do this, quickly and without complaint, I shall return the hostages unharmed. Love, Harry Potter. Professor Dumbledore smiled benignly down at me, and I fought the urge to cower behind Ron, Hermione, or possibly Ginevra. That smile always seemed to precede a terrible loss during my time as a Dark Lord. I wish you had asked earlier, my boy, he said, shaking his head wearily. I'm afraid I'd quite forgotten to give you a vault key. Ha! Forgotten. Despite the occasional, hopeful rumor of senility, Dumbledore couldn't forget something if he had a team of obliviators following him at all times. I twisted my face into some amalgamation of innocence, not allowing it to slip even as Ron's twitching mouth betrayed his restrained laughter. Of course, sir. I'm just glad to have it now, really. Good, good. If I may be so bold, how have you been buying your books and school supplies before now? The Dursleys helped me out. Not willingly, mind you, but since they lack Ron's Gryffindor courage, they would never be so foolish as to complain about my thievery. Dumbledore's smile grew, and it appeared as if he'd just been hit by a cheering charm. Yes, of course. I'm glad to hear you're so close to your family. Love is wonderful, you know. Yes, it burns things. I recall, I said. Ron said, What? I frowned. Don't make me order Ginevra to silence you again. Ah, yes, Dumbledore chuckled. I had meant to ask, who were the hostages you mentioned? Well, I mostly added that part to speed things along. Ron cleared his throat, and I hurriedly added, Hermione's idea, naturally, but in a pinch I could always use my friends. Albus Dumbledore's eyes twinkled. You always can, I dare say. Now I'm afraid I have to go attend a meeting. Good day to you all. To my surprise, he then headed straight for the Weasleys' house, humming merrily all the way. Hermione asked, what sort of meeting could he mean? Some weird group that's been hanging around all summer, Ron said, wrinkling his nose. The Order of the Phoenix, Ginevra said. I scowled, and Hermione's eyes lit up. She said, Oh, I read about them. They were a small group that opposed Voldemort during the war. Everybody thought that Dumbledore was a member, but no one could ever prove it. Apparently, they're very skilled in urban combat. Ron shrugged. I guess so. Mostly they just sit around and eat Mum's sandwiches. Chapter 11, Harry Potter vs. Dolar's Umbridge, PT. 1. I was 2 months into my latest attempt at brewing Felix Felicis when my home fell on its side. Gah! I cried, vanishing the potion from my robes and the floor before it starting eating its way through again. I got up, unlatched the entryway, and crawled onto the floor outside. What is the meaning of this? I said, staggering to my feet. Hermione didn't even look up from her book. Your trunk fell off the shelf. I hastily took in my surroundings. Hermione sat primly on a seat, reading this year's Charms textbook. Meanwhile, Ron, Ginevra, Luna, and Longbottom were playing a particularly volatile game of exploding snap. We're on the train. Of course we are, Ginevra said. Why didn't anyone inform me that we were returning to Hogwarts? I snapped. Luna crawled away from the game, peering into my trunk curiously. Ron said, We couldn't get in to tell you. You locked us out. Of course I did. You kept trying to steal me from my bed. I waved my hands around in frustration. Hermione flipped a page in her book. To protect you. And I locked it in order to protect myself from you. I acioed my wand, sick of gesturing like a muggle. You don't have a flue in there. How are we supposed to get you? Ron said. Have you ever heard of knocking? Luna looked in my general direction. Do you mind if I go inside? Yes, go ahead. I waved my wand dismissively. Ron gaped. What? She's allowed to go inside, but we're not. She has yet to attempt my kidnapping, I said. Ginevra beamed up from her continued game with Longbottom. I haven't tried to kidnap you yet, Harry. Yes, I just don't want you in my home, I said. Longbottom opened his mouth, glanced at the wand still in my hand, and shut it again. I don't think I would like living in here very much, Luna called from my trunk. It's not very cozy, and it's rather cold. Heat disrupts the brewing process. I glared at Hermione because this latest incident was almost certainly the result of her vengeance. Which reminds me, you ruined 3 months of work. She groaned. You're not seriously trying to make Felix Felicis again. I've figured out the secret to making the most potent batch in existence, I declared. Hermione pursed her lips. You'll be lucky if you can make it at all. That's a very advanced potion, Harry. Most potions masters can't even brew it. Exactly. Excuse me. It takes incredible luck for anyone to successfully brew it. I suspect that luck is actually an ingredient. The insane amount of luck necessary for me to do it would therefore add to the quality of the potion. In fact, it may actually be stealing my luck for later use, thus leading to my many failures. Harry, Hermione said, that's stupid and just the sort of thing that magic does. Ginevra cried. She's got you there, Hermione, Ron said. Longbottom mumbled, makes more sense than potions usually does. Ginevra sat up, an uncomfortably large portion of her face taken over by a smile. You should tell Snape about this. It might completely change potion making, or at least make the class slightly less boring. No, that seems like a bad idea. Snape doesn't like me. Also, more people who are not me would have access to liquid luck, which would be terrible. I guess I could tell him for you if you wanted, she said. I condescendingly tapped her on the head with my wand, snatching it back when she leaned into the touch. If I wasn't careful, I'd have another Bellatrix on my hands. Let me rephrase that. Snape hates all of us. Luna's voice drifted out of my trunk. Harry, I amended my previous statement. Except for Luna, I don't know how he treats Ravenclaws. Only slightly better than Hufflepuffs, Ginevra chirped. Luna's voice was fainter this time. Harry, I'm lost. Hermione nervously stroked her wand, muttering, Harry, why do you have a shield charm up? I glanced around the great hall. There were no eavesdroppers at the moment aside from Ginevra. Put yours up. Ron, hide behind Hermione. Ginevra, hide behind Ron. Obstinate as ever, all three cast separate shields. I growled in annoyance. Hermione frowned. No, seriously, why are we doing this? They're watching. Hooray they? Ginevra asked, voice dropping to match mine. The other students. I think they're preparing an attack. It wouldn't be the first time. Hermione dropped her charm and said, they're just curious. I sense anger, and I very rarely get that one wrong. I glared at an errant Hufflepuff who had the gall to glare back. They were rebelling, just as I always knew they would. Well, I guess some of them might be riled up by the papers. They've been pretty bad about you lately, what with Dumbledore saying you know who's back, Ron said. I raised an eyebrow. And I was not informed of this because, Hermione said, in a trunk. Besides, Rita Skeeter. Wait, didn't we kill her? I exclaimed. Hermione winced. No, Harry, we didn't kill her. No, I remember this specifically. You were trying to starve her to death, and I said that was too evil. We were going to take her out some other way, though. Just what have you been doing all summer? An obnoxious Gryffindor said. A murderer, too. Wait until my ma hears about this. Of course, we all knew you were a crazy, attention-seeking liar. Hermione pursed her lips thoughtfully. Harry is all of those things, but rarely at the same time. Also, he's my best mate, Ron said. It doesn't matter how true your insults are. I'm hexing you for having a go at him. I'll help, Ginevra squealed. I raised a hand. Down, Weasleys. I can handle this. They reluctantly acquiesced. I stared at the Gryffindor through my shimmering shield charm. Tell me, have I ever been quoted as saying that Lord Voldemort is back? Have you ever seen me say that? Am I saying it now? He appeared confused. So you're saying he isn't then? I chuckled. Well, I wouldn't go that far. I certainly saw some snake-like man burst from a cauldron. However, I cannot say with certainty that he was Voldemort. I've never even seen a photograph of the man. There aren't many of them around, and they're almost never in the history books, Hermione said. Ron snorted. Not surprising, is it? It's bloody creepy when he smiles and waves at you. I've always loved having my picture taken. The Gryffindor cleared his throat. But Dumbledore said that you said that Voldemort was back. Dumbledore is clearly trying to manipulate you all. I am neutral on the Voldemort issue. Tell all of your friends. The Gryffindor, still looking dazed, wandered off. Ron nodded, standing tall as though he had just chased the boy away single-handedly. Hermione said, that should quiet some of the louder Gryffindors. I quirked an eyebrow. You were in your trunk, Ginevra said. I sighed. Trust Dumbledore to sabotage my reputation. The redhead tapped her chin thoughtfully. Well, he hasn't done a very good job. The Gryffindors are mostly behind you already. The Hufflepuffs think you're lying. but you insult them in public, so you never stood a chance there. The Ravenclaws who are lucid enough to understand what's going on are reserving judgment. And the Slytherins believe you because Voldemort killed most of their parents. I hummed thoughtfully. Yes, I suppose we have that in common. I stared at my folded hands, Dumbledore's phoenix burning my face as it crept ever closer. Sir, I think your bird is hissing at me. Because he likes you, my boy, Dumbledore said. The phoenix slowly backed away. A quick glance showed that its beady black eyes still watched my every move. You said the same thing about Snape. They're both rather unconventional in showing their fondness, he said. I've often wondered if Dumbledore was attempting to orchestrate my death through negligence. Dumbledore steepled his fingers, leaning forward. Do you know why I called you here today, Harry? I spoke very quickly. Is it because I publicly denounced you in front of the entire student body? The old man looked surprised for a moment, an obvious act, before coughing. I may wish to speak of that later, but no. Did you hear about the break-in at the Ministry of Magic this summer? No, I said, thinking of the prophecy orb which now served as a makeshift lamp in my trunk. Why would I know anything about the ministry? I don't keep up with politics. You should tell me about it. The details don't matter, he said. What you need to understand is that Voldemort broke into the ministry to steal something very important, something that concerns you both, a prophecy. I tried to channel my inner Ron. We read about those in divination, I think. Don't they tell the future or something? They do indeed. This prophecy concerns Voldemort and yourself. I heard it many years ago, and it seems that Voldemort now knows it. I believe it is time that you do as well. I frowned. I'm confused. Why am I always the last to know about these things? I was trying to protect your innocence. How would a normal 15-year-old respond to that? Hermione would write a book report. Ron would turn red and start sputtering. Malfoy would go brush his hair or something. I gave up that line of thought and shrugged because scoffing seemed suspicious. Smiling, Dumbledore prepared a pensive and showed me his memory of Trelawney's prophecy. As I swirled back into the real world, I asked, "Are you sure that this is genuine? This is Trelawney we're talking about here. According to her, I'm supposed to have died 6 times by now. I know, she usually gives dates. I'm quite certain of its validity." I shivered at the thought of what disturbing rituals Dumbledore had performed to satisfy him of this. I shook myself, turning to brighter topics. So I have to kill Voldemort then? Perhaps, Dumbledore said, as non-committal as ever. Or perhaps you might defeat him with love. I snorted. Fire doesn't kill everything, Headmaster. Wait, I have a brilliant idea. Oh, yes, he asked. I widened my eyes, which I could imagine shining with excitement. Could you teach me your dark magic? The phoenix dived for my head. It was a typical evening in the Gryffindor common room. Hermione was polishing off the 10th page of our 5-page charms essay. Ron was thrashing Longbottom in chess, an accomplishment that was more embarrassing than impressive. And Ginevra was by the fireplace pretending to have other friends. Dumbledore won't talk to me, I grumbled. This would usually be a good thing, but I now had no idea what he was plotting. Hermione rolled her eyes. Well, maybe you shouldn't have asked him for his dark magic. I'll admit that might have been rude, I conceded, but he just told me that I had to kill Lord Voldemort, and really it's very selfish of him to hoard it. He doesn't even have an heir. Ron looked up from the chessboard where his knight was busy decapitating Longbottom's queen. He said, "Mate, Dumbledore isn't evil." I never said Dumbledore was evil. Implied, yes, but outright stated. Absolutely not. Everyone knows the portraits spy for him. I continued, besides, that has nothing to do with this conversation. Hermione got a queer look on her face and asked, Harry, just what do you think dark magic is? I snorted. Secret magic retained within a family, obviously. That's why they call it dark magic. It's kept in the dark where very few people get to see it. But I thought it was just evil magic, Ron said. Like spells that make people's eyes explode and stuff. Well, of course it's mostly that. If I invented a spell that made eyeballs explode, I wouldn't tell everyone about it. People would start asking awkward questions like, why would you make something like that? And what's wrong with you? And are you the person going around exploding people's eyeballs? Then they would start to use it on you, or they'd come up with a counter curse, ruining the whole point of inventing it in the first place. Actually, that's where most of the spells we learn in class come from. Petrificus totalis, for instance. Hermione huffed. That's ridiculous. Petrificus totalis is perfectly harmless. I said, Oh, sure, it's all good fun now that everyone knows the counterspell, but no one was laughing when the Parkinsons used it to bury their political enemies alive. Hermione gasped, hands flying up to cup her mouth and Charm's assignment forgotten on her lap. That's horrible. Magic usually is, I said, but dark magic isn't any more evil than the rest. It's just very exclusive. A light of understanding weakly lit within Ron's Weasley eyes. So when you said that my family had dark magic, I assumed that during your 900-year history, at least one of your ancestors invented a spell and then didn't go out and tell everyone, I said. Ginny isn't evil then, Ron said. I paused, thinking for a moment. I'm not sure. Only one way to find out, I suppose. Wah! I turned towards the fireplace and shouted, Ginevra, Hermione is recruiting for her dark army. Would you like to join? Ginevra appeared thoughtful. Are you going to join? I haven't decided yet, I admitted. Let me know when you do. She nodded decisively and then turned back to her previous conversation. I said to Ron, see, she's less evil than Hermione. I'm not evil, Hermione said. I chuckled. Then we have nothing to worry about. Ron frowned. Someone should probably let Dumbledore know that Harry isn't evil either. Hem, Umbridge hem-hemed. I turned most potent potions to page 412. Hem. A flick of my wand sent 3 small fires dancing atop my desk. I glanced up disdainfully at her toad-like face. What is it? Can you tell me, Mr. Potter, why a cauldron is on top of your desk? I frowned, adjusting it slightly so that the fires evenly heated its pewter sides. Felix Felicis is very sensitive to altitudes. This isn't ideal, but it'll have to do. She pursed her lips so that they looked a bit like a duck's bill. And why aren't you reading your textbook? I already did that, I said. In this class, we read the textbook, she said slowly, smiling as if I couldn't sense her evil intentions. Yes, which is why everyone hates your class. I turned around to the seat behind me. Right, Hermione. Harry, you can't say things like that to professors. I turned triumphantly back to Umbridge. If she didn't hate your class, she would have said that. For instance, she'll never accept that potions might as well be self-study. Hermione huffed. Potions is a perfectly reasonable subject which requires a teacher to ensure its students' safety. See, we all hate your class. I would blame the curriculum, but I don't think we have one of those. You're just a terrible teacher. Her chest heaved up and down in fury. How dare you? It's not just me. Snape agrees, and he should know. He's a terrible teacher, too. Umbridge said, I have absolutely no interest in the opinions of a half-breed werewolf. I laughed at her idiocy. Snape is a full werewolf. There's no such thing as a half-werewolf, and you would know that if you knew anything about your subject. Detention, Mr. Potter, she cried. I glared. Fine, we'll talk about werewolves. Maybe you'll even learn something. Only way to seal a werewolf bite is with a mixture of powdered silver and dittany. Mind you, it doesn't do much good against, Umbridge interrupted, and I was suddenly quite certain that she hadn't been listening at all. Your detention will be very simple. You will write, I must not interrupt class. There wasn't a class to interrupt. You will write it as many times as it takes to sink in, she said tightly, pulling out a thin black quill. I gestured widely with my wand. It sunk in. Can I go? 500 lines, then, she said. I sighed gustily and took the quill. I was aware that arguing would only irritate her further, a secondary goal, but I knew a blood quill when I saw one. And that complaint had given me just enough time to cast an invisible glove charm, most commonly used by potions masters. You see, a blood quill is always attached to the last person whose skin touched it. In this case, Professor Umbridge. I smirked and wrote the first line. Umbridge yelped. I wrote the second. Mr. Potter. I wrote the third, humming merrily under my breath. Stop that right this instant, Umbridge shrieked. I looked up from the parchment, absent-mindedly doodling. What is it, Professor? She trembled with rage, clutching her injured hand. Give me the quill. I smiled congenially. Are you bleeding? She's got you in for detention again. I figured you'd have scared her off already, Ron said, lounging in a chair near the common room fireplace. Honestly, Hermione huffed, this wouldn't happen if you didn't keep antagonizing her. You think she's terrible, too, I pointed out. Yes, but I don't tell her that. I stared at Hermione, stunned by her selfishness and cowardice. Then how is she supposed to know? Ron said. She probably already does, mate. No, she could not possibly know how awful she is and then do nothing about it. She's worse than Quirrell. She's even worse than Binns. At least he lets us duel in the back of the classroom. Hermione said, You can't keep doing that, by the way. It's disrespectful. Binns doesn't mind, I said. She curled her fingers into fists. He doesn't notice. I nodded. Exactly. Binns doesn't stop us from learning. He doesn't encourage it either, mind you. I've been turning in the same essay every month, and I get the same grade every time. That's cheating, Hermione said, as if she didn't do worse things on a daily basis. Binns doesn't think so. Ron appeared awestruck. That's brilliant. Hermione scowled at him, and he hurriedly added, "But you shouldn't do that." I said, "Why not? We essentially don't have a teacher for that class. I might as well enjoy the advantages. Regardless, Umbridge is actively ruining our ability to learn. You of all people should be upset about that. You'll fail your owls." Ginevra giggled in the corner, calling out, "I would pay to see that. It would just be so weird." Hermione's eyes widened until she resembled a house elf. "You're right. We need to do something about this. A study group, maybe. You and Ron will be in it, of course. Neville, too, and I imagine Ginevra will want to join." "I do. So that makes 5 of us," she said, nodding jerkily. "Good, all right. And the Ravenclaws, too, if they haven't already organized something." Ginevra said they haven't. "All right, good. We'll all arrange a meeting time, and I will lead it," I declared, eyes shining. This was perfect. If I successfully prepared a class of students for their owls, then Dumbledore would have no choice but to give me the Dada position. "But there's nothing here," Ron said, staring at the blank wall beside the portrait of Barnabas the Barmy and his dancing trolls. Hermione smirked, head tilted smugly, as she began another one of her history lessons. "The Room of Requirement only appears under very specific circumstances, since they tried to seal it several centuries ago, but it's definitely there." She began walking, Ron trailing behind her. She turned abruptly, bumping into Ron, and face reddened with exertion, continued her pacing. I stood still and watched the wall. Recalling the storage room where I'd stashed Ravenclaw's diadem, I frowned. "How did you find out about this room again?" "It's in Hogwarts, a history." "Good, no one ever reads that book, so my Horcrux was fairly safe." Hermione's eyes sparkled. "It's a fascinating story, really. Ravenclaw designed this room a few years after founding the school. It could temporarily summon anything off the grounds, and she often used it when preparing a particularly tricky ritual or spell. Of course, it also became quite popular among the students as a recreation center, but it was too enthralling for some, and a few students never came out. They say you can still find their skeletons if you ask it for the right thing. "Hermione, you're really not selling me on this room," I said. "It doesn't have any sort of enchantment to lure you in. Some people just don't like their lives, I suppose. And I don't have to sell you on it." A door shimmered into existence. "It will sell itself well enough." I opened it, peering inside with my wand raised. The arched ceiling rivaled that of the great hall, and wheeled dummies darted about one section, occasionally bumping into sturdier targets. At the far end, a podium overlooked the room. To the side, a bookcase jutted out, connected to the wall by a red velvet curtain. "Impressive," I said. "Oh, isn't it?" she sighed, immediately racing to the bookcase. Ron cast a stunner at one of the dummies, grinning when it flashed bright red and collapsed. "Wicked." I wandered about, mentally claiming the podium as my property and taking a head off of a dummy. It promptly regrew it. I wondered if I could instruct the room to not let it do that. I then peered around the curtain. "Oh, look, there's even a bed in here for when the members are injured," Hermione squeaked, and a library book thudded against the floor. I frowned. "Of course, we'll have to get rid of the skeletons first." The grass whispered across my scales as I slithered away from the mansion. I liked it better there. There were more hiding places. But I couldn't hunt Master's minions. I wasn't allowed. I hissed as a scuffling sound caught my attention. Venom pooled in my mouth, and I lunged forward, hairy. I blinked, suddenly aware of the Room of Requirement, which was arranged in its usual position for our study group. Hermione and the other Ravenclaws huddled in the corner, whispering, while the rest of the students practiced their patronesses. After showing the wand motions, I'd sat this lesson out. That spell simply did not like me. Neville hovered nearby, ready to bolt at any moment. "Neville!" I cried, slinging an arm around his shoulder. Just the man I wanted to see. "Me." "Of course," I said. "You. Oh, okay. What do you want?" I gave the boy a measuring glance. He'd always been pudgy, his timidity had yet to lessen, his classwork was abysmal, and Neville Longbottom was generally pathetic. Exactly what I required. "I wish to grant you a great favor," I said. I will make you the fifth greatest Hogwarts graduate since it was first founded 1,000 years ago. Neville shoved his hands into his pocket, a nervous habit acquired from several years of owning a toad that despised captivity. Fifth, well, there's no beating Dumbledore, Voldemort, or myself, and Hermione would probably poison you if you outperformed her. Why, you're kidding about this, right? Neville asked. Not at all, I assured him. I will happily do this for you. All that I ask is that you tell everyone that I was your teacher. All right, he said. I smirked. Our training shall begin when you least expect it. Neville nodded, looking pale. Hermione sent me to get you. You need to sign the contract. I snorted and stalked towards the library. I don't sign magical contracts. Remind her of that. Neville looked as if he might speak for a moment, then scurried away. I noticed a lot of runes when I visited your house. I don't suppose you're trying to summon a demon? Luna asked. A silvery hair hopped behind her, occasionally stopping to sniff the floor. Well, not actively, I said with a modest shrug. Oh, Luna spent a moment staring into space. Are you from the future? I don't think I've ever been quite so taken aback. What? Well, it's just that you get most spells on the first try, except when they're obscure, in which case you become upset and take slightly longer than average. Also, you know a lot of things that you probably shouldn't. I've never been one to diminish my reputation. It's true. I come from a time not long removed from now, where I am the defense against the dark arts professor at Hogwarts. In my timeline, I successfully defeated Voldemort, but then decided that I could do better. Luna's patroness jerked its head up, then disappeared. Luna spoke softly. You don't have to lie, you know. You could have just told me I was wrong. She departed, her movements less floating than usual. I scowled at her retreating form. Right, she probably wants an apology or something. Ginevra. Ginevra raced from the line of practicing students, and I found myself chuckling at her eagerness. I need you to apologize to Luna for me. All right, the redhead said. What did you do? I shrugged. I'm not sure. You should probably figure that out before you apologize to her, or you'll look like a jerk. Chapter 12. Harry Potter vs. Dolor's Umbridge, PT. 2. I stormed into Dumbledore's office, summons in hand, and slammed it down upon the old man's desk. I don't care what Umbridge has told you. Pensive memories can be faked, and everyone knows that Veritaserum doesn't work on sociopaths. Dumbledore remained calm, a trait that was as unwavering as it was frustrating. Mr. Potter, I have done nothing, and I will testify to this under Veritaserum. The phoenix screeched in irritation, and I screeched back to establish dominance. Dumbledore said, Mr. Potter, this meeting does not concern Professor Umbridge. Oh, I said, that's good because I haven't done anything. He offered me a lemon drop. Yes, I know, you were quite vocal about that earlier. I spoke slowly. I don't suppose you're planning to teach me dark magic. His eyes twinkled. No, I'm afraid not, although Miss Weasley did enlighten me about your unique definition for the term. I would have to talk with her about meddling in my affairs without my consent. I made a note of that, and then promptly forgot it when Dumbledore said, Have you noticed anything strange lately? I sank into the seat in front of Dumbledore's desk. Well, the ghosts have been whispering among themselves a lot. Do you think they're rebelling? No, that likely has to do with the bloody Baron's death day. I was referring to whether you have experienced something strange lately. Odd visions, voices, urges, anything of that sort, he prompted. I considered his question. Every few nights, I dreamt that I was once again Lord Voldemort, ordering and crucioing my Death Eaters. Just this morning, I'd missed the entirety of Professor Flitwick's lecture because I was too caught up in daydreaming that I was a man-eating snake. And I'd nearly taken Ron's head off during a recent meeting of our new study group when I felt a sudden and inexplicable flash of rage. For quite possibly the first time in my life, I answered Albus Dumbledore honestly. Nothing out of the ordinary. He frowned. Nothing at all. I shook my head, jumping a bit when the phoenix landed on the desk in front of me. Is that a problem? I asked. No, it's very good, actually. I peered into his eyes. Really, you seem sort of disappointed about it. Dumbledore spoke gravely. I had suspected that your scar might connect you to Voldemort, allowing you some sort of window into his mind. If this had been the case, then his rebirth would have caused certain side effects to both of you. It seems I was wrong. That I was incorrect is almost certainly for the better. Ha, I said, yanking my hand away from the phoenix's bite. I don't suppose I can leave now. Dumbledore waved me towards the door. Go ahead, though I do hope that Professor Umbridge will have no cause to pay me a visit today. Of course not, I scoffed. I've done nothing. The Phoenix watched me leave with black, judging eyes. Lucius, I cried, waving my minion over to take a seat in front of my previously his desk. Lucius, startled, said, My lord. Yes, that is who I am, I said. How are you? Lucius raised a trembling hand. I'm still in pain, and I can't do any paperwork until the nerves heal. Right, the crucioing, I said with a knowing nod. Sorry about that. I had a flash of sudden and inexplicable rage. He frowned. Really, I expected him to be more cheerful since I'd gotten that hair growth potion. I shrugged off his ungratefulness. I had the weirdest dream yesterday. Lucius dully asked, clearly struggling to hide his curiosity. Was that during the nap you took after crucioing me? I beamed. Yes, that's the one. I was in History of Magic and you were there, and a Weasley. And then we started dueling in the back of the classroom, but Binns didn't stop us because he didn't notice. It angered me greatly. Do you know why? Lucius frowned, smoothing down his hair with a shaking hand. Because you didn't get to crucio anyone. I laughed. No, no. I just can't stop thinking, why didn't I do that when I was still a student? Binns probably wouldn't have noticed. Oh, before I forget. One of your peacocks was being insubordinate, so I killed it. Darby promised to have it ready for dinner. I'm not actually certain if people eat peacocks, but I imagine the taste of victory will override any unpleasant flavor. Hermione nibbled on the tip of her quill, looking at her newly purchased planner. This would be a lot easier if we didn't have to work around your detentions with Umbridge. I consider it recreation at this point, I said, and we're making real progress. She's finally acknowledged that she has no idea how to deal with boggarts. Hermione pinched her lips. Why, she can't even get the one out from under her bed. She jotted something down in the margin. Do I even want to know how you got it under there? Lemon drops, I said. I'm thinking I'll work on werewolves next. You can't put Professor Lupin under Umbridge's bed, she sighed. I was thinking Snape, though I suppose Lupin would be the better choice. He can deal with the boggart. Harry James Poe. A loud boom echoed through the room of requirement, and we watched, stunned, as a dummy slammed into the wall and fell into pieces. Its head landed in my batch of Felix Felicis with a sickly hiss and a string of black smoke. Finally, Hermione said, Ron, what type of spell was that? A stunner, Ron said. Oh, she said. You might want to put a little less energy into it next time. I said, or you could not do that. Meow, mew, araroa, purra. This was completely ridiculous. Kitten plates covered Umbridge's wall, constantly mewling and fighting with each other. I usually took my detentions in the Dada classroom, but it hadn't yet recovered from my last detention. I turned away from my parchment and a quill that used actual ink and towards Umbridge, who was pretending to grade papers, but primarily watching me fail to write lines. I said, It doesn't matter how many kittens you put on your wall. No one will ever believe you have a soul. That might have seemed a bit harsh. Still, I've been fighting a strange urge to crucio someone all day, preferably Malfoy, and I needed to vent. She raised an arm, pink sleeve swinging perilously close to my inkwell. Well, I hardly think, and the pink, I cried. Wait, of course, you're still using the methods that allowed you to appear normal during your childhood. Unfortunately, the kittens and pink and crooning voice only further alienate you from your current peers. You're 67 and it's creepy now, which reminds me, happy birthday. Umbridge's face was beginning to match her robes. She smiled tightly. Are you lying again, Mr. Potter? Tut, tut, it looks like you. Wait. Before you say anything else, I am obligated to inform you that, if you assign me any more detentions, I will technically be your apprentice. Detention, she smiled sweetly, a week's worth. Really, Ronald? Hermione exclaimed as we exited the great hall. We were stopped short, however, when Draco Malfoy, along with Crabbe and Goyle, stepped in front of us. Malfoy, I said, nodding. Potter, he said. Still dragging along the weasel and your pet mudblood, eh? I don't suppose you've rethought my offer for more fitting companionship. Not really. Have you reconsidered being my minion? Ron laughed at the suggestion, while Hermione nearly growled. She had been getting rather territorial lately. Between her and Ginevra, it was a wonder I'd recruited so many new minions this year. Malfoy snapped. I would never. We clearly had nothing to discuss, since we were once again at a standstill, so I continued walking. Ron nearly tripped, distracted by his shuddering laughter. Malfoy gaped. Hey, get back here. I turned around, eyebrow quirked. You can't just leave, the Blarn said. Right, he hadn't gotten around to talking about his father or his money yet. Ron crossed his arms menacingly, though Malfoy's hulking minions diminished the affect. The redhead said, You bloody well bet we can. Actually, you poor weasel, that is no longer allowed under High Inquisitor Umbridge's rules, Malfoy said. Only 2 students can be together outside of classes. 3's more than that, Crabbe put in helpfully. Malfoy smirked. So you'll have to split up, or I'll dark points from Gryffindor. Hermione glared, hand flying to her prefect's badge. Prefects are not allowed to dark points from other houses. It's a clear conflict of interest. 10 points for arguing with a member of Umbridge's new inquisitorial squad, who, by the way, can take as many points as they like. He raised a hand at Ron's opening mouth, and are exempt from the 3-person rule. I knew he wouldn't stay independent for long. Malfoys were born to minion. Malfoy turned to me triumphantly. I'll give 50 to Slytherin if you agree to an alliance. I'm rooting for Gryffindor now, I said regretfully. Bollocks, he muttered. How'd you even get on this squad, Malfoy? Ron asked. I don't remember hearing anything about it. Well, it's very exclusive. My father, well, that's 2 for 2. Hermione sweetly cut in, so you bought your place then. Malfoy scowled. Umbridge just prefers a better quality of wizard. Oh, my apologies, she crooned. Nepotism. I can't say I'm surprised. That's how you get everything else. Your place on the Quidditch team, your spot as a prefect. Jealous, Granger? Malfoy asked. Not at all. I can't even imagine how exhausting it must be to realize that you simply aren't good enough for anything. A very Dumbledore gleam lit her eyes. That must be the reason you're in Slytherin, too. After all, you don't exactly fit the requirements very well. You're simple-minded, unsubtle, and unambitious. Typical Hufflepuff traits, I said. Hermione ignored me, too focused on the kill. You're pureblood, I suppose, presuming your mother didn't. Malfoy trembled with rage. Shut up, mudblood. He threw the first spell, but Hermione was the one that got a detention. Admittedly, that wasn't as unreasonable as it might have seemed. She could be positively vicious when aimed at an acceptable target. Hermione slammed the room of requirements door shut, startling me from target practice, with Neville as the target. So, I asked, shooting a spell over my shoulder. How was detention? Fine, she hissed. I frowned. You used the charm I showed you, right? Because if you didn't, then that would be really dumb, and I don't take you for some sort of Hufflepuff. In the distance, a Hufflepuff blew the head off of a dummy. Hermione said, Yes, I used the glove. Did she bleed? I prodded. Yes, Harry, she bloody well bled, she shouted. And then Malfoy waited outside to take more points for injuring a teacher because he's a great big git. She stormed towards the library. What's got her knickers in a twist? Ron asked, absent-mindedly shooting a curse at Neville. I shrugged. I don't. Wait, never mind. I think I know. I wandered over to the library's table, smiling uneasily as Hermione glared up from a hastily acquired book. She said, What? Right. How to approach this? I'd never had someone willing to have this discussion with me when I was a confused, pubescent boy. Hermione, you are a beautiful, brilliant young woman, and it's natural for you to have certain urges. Her eyes widened. You do not have to, I forged on. You might look around at some of your classmates who are wealthy and attractive and want very badly to crush them beneath your heel. Hermione blinked a few times in quick succession. I have to admit, that was absolutely not where I thought this conversation was going. I smiled, placing a hand on her shoulder. When you see someone like Malfoy, all you want is for him to kneel down and kiss your robes. Harry, I don't want that. That would be horrible. I shook my head. No, see, you're making this a good and evil thing. It's not. This is about power. He has it, and you want him to give you that power and suffer for keeping it from you for so long. She pouted. Honestly, I just want him to stop bothering me and possibly never speak again. If he was your minion, you could make him do those things. Hermione took a deep breath, then sighed gustily. I don't think you understand this, so I'm going to explain it as simply as possible. It's a git, and I don't like him. Of course he is. He's only 15. One day, Malfoy is going to realize just how much he wants to be your minion, and he's going to feel so embarrassed about all this. Hermione groaned, burying her face in her hands. I threw the doors open, storming into Lucius's great whole-formal dining room ballroom, long, high-ceilinged room which made my voice echo menacingly. I declared, Welcome, my dearest, most loyal servants. I suddenly noticed the nearly empty room. Lucius clutched his snake-headed cane tightly. Severus, meanwhile, remained stoic. I'm still not entirely certain that he experiences emotion. I'd never found any while using legilimency. I scowled. Where is the rest of the inner circle? Indisposed, my lord, Severus drawled. What could possibly be more important than attending to me? I snapped. That idiot crab doesn't even have a job. I could kill him for this insult. Severus smirked. Actually, you did kill him. Several months ago. How forward-thinking of me. I settled onto my new throne made with a pile of Malfoy portraits. To my delight, they wailed every time I sat down. What about Wilkes? He died during the last war, Severus said. I stroked my chin. Zabini, Lucius anxiously petted his hair as he often does. His wife got him. I gripped my wand, lazily pointing it at Lucius. Rosier, the blonde fell to his knees in a grovel. You killed him an hour ago, my lord. Wait, did I? I'm well aware of that. I was testing you. Severus watched me impassively. Of course, my lord. I said, what about Bellatrix then? I'm quite certain I didn't kill her. She is in Azkaban, Severus said. Oh, I tapped my wand against my chin thoughtfully. Why? You likely recall that she is a Death Eater, Severus said. Plenty of people are Death Eaters, I said. They aren't in Azkaban. Well, yes, Lucius said, but Bellatrix admitted to it. Bellatrix never struck me as a Hufflepuff, I muttered. Why would she be so stupid? There wasn't much point in denying her involvement, Snape drawled. When they caught her, she was busy torturing the Longbottoms into insanity. Yes, she did always like that, so she's been in there for 13 years, Lucius said helpfully. I leaned back on my throne, smiling as the Malfoy ancestors groaned underneath me. That's pretty long. We should do something about that. Hermione received the Morning Prophet, eyes immediately skimming the byline for Rita Skeeter. She soon relaxed, evidence that the front-page articles were written by someone else. Satisfied, the girl turned her gaze to the headline and cursed. I'm not sure if she's ever done that before. You all right, Myone? Ron asked. She said, there's been a jailbreak at Azkaban. All the Death Eaters have escaped. Ron began to smile, then frowned, then settled for his usual confused expression. Well, that's good, right? Yeah, a bunch of Death Eaters are probably going to attack us. More than usual, I mean, but at least now they can't say that you know who isn't back. Hermione crumpled the paper, hissing, they're blaming it on Sirius Black. Well, to be fair, it could have been Black, I said. He hasn't tried to kill me in months, which just doesn't seem like him. He must be plotting something in his spare time. Harry, this is serious. Ron grinned through a mouthful of mashed-up toast. Or it could be Sirius. You know, like Sirius BL, Hermione said. Not the time. Also, finish chewing. Some of the absolute worst people from the last war could be coming here. The Mulcibers, Augustus Rookwood, Hagrid, Bellatrix Lestrange. Harry, are you even listening to me? I startled back into reality. Oh yes, sorry. Just had a sudden feeling of déjà vu. Hermione huffed, shoving away her half-eaten breakfast to make room for a book on hexes. I stopped by the room of requirement after detention, disappointed to find Neville collapsed on the ground. Neville, why aren't you running? I can't, he panted. Too much. I'm trying to make you a legend here, I said. I thought you wanted that. I guess, Neville muttered. Then why are you giving up already? I asked, feeling a bit like Hermione. It's, not helping me with my magic, Neville said. All this running around. I scowled. Neville had completely misinterpreted this offer, but everyone now knew that he was my student, and I had no intention of failing now. I never said anything about magic, just being great. Also killing evil wizards, or good wizards, depending on whether you decide to join up with Hermione. Ginevra, who was helping a Ravenclaw with his spellwork, shouted, Hermione's studying right now, but she said that, if you said that, I should mention that she isn't evil. Regardless of Hermione's lies, I said, physical prowess is a rarely used but surprisingly effective tool for destroying your enemies. Most wizards cannot handle close-quarters combat. Even the most incompetent wizard can excel if he's good with a sword or something. Just look at Godric Gryffindor. Neville blinked. Oh, okay. It was nice to tell someone something without Hermione around to complain about fact-checking or non-existent sources or common sense. He frowned, standing. Why don't you exercise? Oh, that's because I'm actually good at magic. Neville swayed on his feet, looking miserable again. I'm not sure why. I'd done a perfectly good job cheering him up. A quiet voice said, "Don't worry, Neville. Raxpots are attracted to the pollen on your clothes. You would probably be fine in a colder climate." I beamed, whirling around to find Luna Lovegood. "You're back. I presume you got Ginevra's apology." She nodded. "Yes," she seemed very sincere about it. "Good, good," I said while Neville trudged away from us. "Is there anything else I can help you with? I've just been wondering, are you a Department of Mysteries spy?" I frowned, curbing the urge to build my legend. "Why do you think that?" "I would expect Harry Potter to get special training, but they wouldn't want anyone to know about that, so they sent a spy in his place. Also, you're friends with a lot of important people. The Weasleys, the smartest girl in our generation, the son of Voldemort's right-hand man. Sirius Black had a son. Was it Ron? It was probably Ron. No, I mean Draco Malfoy, although I suppose he could be Black's son," she said thoughtfully. "Oh, he's not my friend." "Really?" Luna hummed to herself. "There's also the Longbottom heir and the Quibbler editor's daughter." "I legitimately have no idea which one that is," I admitted. She stared at me with wide, pale eyes. "Me? Right. So you're not a spy then?" I chuckled. "Of course not. Hermione's the spy. The Department of Mysteries wouldn't send two spies." Luna pouted. Hermione isn't a spy for the Department of Mysteries. That would be silly." "I hardly think this is necessary," McGonagall said, lips thinned with annoyance. Umbridge merrily followed the other woman into her office. She tittered. Now, Minerva, I observed all of the werewolf's career advice sessions. We wouldn't want any insinuations of favoritism, now would we?" "That werewolf is my colleague," McGonagall spat. "Also, that's just a silly rumor among the students. They've been calling him a vampire for years." "Well, they do say that children are intuitive about these things," she said. McGonagall raised an eyebrow, sitting primly behind her desk. "I suspect they had little experience with children." I lowered my invisibility cloak's hood. It was a wonder it had lasted this long. Of course, Dumbledore had likely lied about its age, as he often does. Umbridge squeaked in fright, and McGonagall's mouth twitched upwards. She asked, "Here for our meeting, Mr. Potter?" "Of course," I said. "You're quite early," McGonagall remarked. I shrugged. I was excited. She nearly smiled but caught herself just in time. 2 hours early, in fact. "Incredibly excited," I clarified. "Also, I have detention in 2 hours." "I imagine most students would have used this as an excuse to skip detention," she said. I smiled, taking a seat in front of her desk. "No, that's all right. I like detention. It wouldn't be nearly as fun if I followed the professor's instructions, but unlike the other students, I have no fear of expulsion. Dumbledore would never allow me that far from his domain." "Ah," McGonagall said. "Tell me, Mr. Potter, what is your opinion on Professor Umbridge's presence at this meeting?" "It seems reasonable to me," I said. Umbridge smirked. "Thank you. After all, that's perfectly within her rights as my master. If she was at any other students' meetings, however, that would be weird." It was nice to see Umbridge scowling again. Her smile gave me the heebie-jeebies. Umbridge turned to McGonagall and said, "I simply do not understand why you've allowed a clearly mentally ill boy to go untreated for so long while under your care. Mr. Potter is simply a child, Dolors. It's no surprise you don't understand that since you have so very little experience in teaching." McGonagall turned smoothly back to me. "Now, Mr. Potter, have you given any thought to your future career?" "Of course," I said, beaming. "I'm going to be the defense against the dark arts professor at Hogwarts." McGonagall was silent for a few moments, no doubt impressed by how astutely I had chosen my career path. "Are you certain that's a wise decision, Mr. Potter?" "Well, yeah. I mean, I'm pretty good at defense, and I'm great with kids. I'd been surrounded by them for the past several years, and not one child had suffered irreparable harm while under my care. This is particularly impressive because I lead them into dangerous situations all the time. Besides," I said, "the position's always open." "And that doesn't concern you," McGonagall prodded. Umbridge scribbled something on her notepad. "No, not at all. I've survived everything that got rid of the last ones. And I wasn't very well going to murder myself. Perhaps Mr. Potter would be suited for a more," Umbridge coughed lightly, "simple position. I hardly think the stresses of professorship would be well suited to his delicate mind, and his delinquent tendencies are hardly fitting for the post." "You're the only person who ever gives me detention," I pointed out. "I could easily argue that the problem is not me, but you." I would be lying, of course. Snape still docked points from Slytherin for my misconduct. McGonagall had devised a method of punishment whereby my favorite desserts would go unmade for days after any particularly concerning transgressions, and Filch had actively avoided me since my only detention with him back in second year. That's ridiculous. You earn those detentions through your disrespect. And you earn my disrespect by being a terrible teacher, I explained. So if you would stop doing that, you wouldn't have to put up with my detentions anymore. Detention, she hissed, stubborn as ever. I shrugged. Besides, I would have thought you would approve of my choice to take your job. Why else would you make me your apprentice? The rest of the Gryffindor's career advice meetings had to be postponed because Umbridge exploded McGonagall's office. As I explained to Umbridge during my later detention, her temper was one of many traits that made her such a terrible choice for defense against the dark arts professor. No, not the bubblehead charm, Hermione muttered. Nearly everyone knows it already, and the few that don't can learn it from the others during their self-guided period. Did Neville ever figure out the Patronus? It took me a moment to realize that Hermione was no longer talking to herself. I said, it doesn't really matter. We've given up on magic for Neville. Honestly, Harry, he can't just give up on magic. We go to school for magic. Actually, we go to school for witches and wizards. Neville has more traditional talents like swordsmanship. Hermione glanced up from a half-filled planner. I didn't know Neville could use a sword. He's working on it. I nodded to the other end of the room, where Neville was hacking at a dummy with a sword. Hermione's lips pursed. Is that a real sword? I said. I suppose that depends on your definition of real. Yes, it cuts things, but the room may have created it solely to fulfill our wishes. We walked over to Neville, and Neville waved hello with his sword. Hermione gasped, eyes wide. Oh, Merlin or Gryffindor, OROH my. Are you all right? He asked. I didn't cut you or anything, right? I don't think I was that close, but it might be magic. Well, more magic than give it to me. I'd like to examine it, she said weakly. He did so, and it disappeared. Hermione stared at her empty hands. Well, you've destroyed it. How is Neville supposed to become good at anything now? I grumbled. The sword appeared in Neville's grasp. Hermione leaned forward, sucking air in through her large teeth. This is the sword of Gryffindor. I snatched it from Neville, growling as it once again disappeared. A crowd had begun to gather, mumbling and eyeing Neville enviously each time the sword reappeared in his hands. Someone would make a grab for it, only for it to vanish again and again. Above the commotion, Dumbledore's phoenix perched, watching us, as it always does. The sword of Gryffindor can only be wielded by those who are worthy of the house, Hermione explained. Finally, licking his lips nervously, Ron took the sword from Neville. He stared at it in awe. I feel like Merlin from that story with the stone and sword. You mean King Arthur, Ronald, Hermione said. No, he said. I mean Merlin. Who's that other bloke? I crept through the dungeons, feeling like a man-eating snake stalking its prey. Sidling closer, I whispered, Psst, Draco, Draco, Dra. Malfoy jumped, head whipping about him. Bloody hell, Potter, what are you doing? I'm invisible, Malfoy snorted. Yes, Potter, I am aware that you're invisible. You're always invisible. What I want to know is why you're in the Slytherin common room. I smirked. I followed someone in, or maybe I guessed the password. Or maybe I hissed at the wall and it let me in. Or maybe I'm the heir of Slytherin and the castle recognizes my right to be here. I won't tell you which one. I'm sneaky like that. Potter, everyone can hear you talking, he pointed out. My eyes widened at his idiocy and I derisively said, You don't have a silencing charm up. What are you, a squib? He flicked his wand. You're not the heir of Slytherin. Are you sure about that? I hissed at him, Hasha. He cocked an eyebrow. Really, Potter? If I'd had a snake, that would have gone a lot better, I informed him. This is primarily true because the snake would have latched onto Malfoy's face, and he would have been too distracted to insult me. Sure, Malfoy said. So, have you finally decided to drop the blood traitor and mudblood? I shook my invisible head. No, I've spent far too much time training them. I would appreciate it if you didn't mention this to Hermione, though. I don't know what's going on between you two, but I refuse to involve myself in your lover's spat. Malfoy's face wrinkled in a very Weasley fashion. Me and Granger, that's disgusting, Potter. 20 points from Gryffindor for making me picture that. I frowned, realized he couldn't see it, and frowned harder. Malfoy, you can't do that. Potter, I know that you occasionally miss the simple facts of reality, so let me explain this to you. I'm a member of the Inquisitorial Squad, and we're allowed to take points. I don't mean it like that, I interrupted. I mean, you literally cannot take points from Gryffindor. Gryffindor has no points. The only house that still has points is Slytherin. The only person who even cares anymore is you. I'm telling you this because some people seem to think we're friends, so you being dumb makes me look bad. He sneered. I am not. No, hear me out here. This is literally the worst example of cheating I've ever seen. You have made your group pointless, much like Gryffindor House, and everyone hates you. Even the other Slytherins hate you because you've all but stated that the only way your house could win the cup is if you cheat. Which, to be fair, is true because you haven't done well in Quidditch since I bought the other three teams new brooms without burdening them with terrible seekers. Potter, he shouted through the silencing charm. But it was too late. I was already gone. I sat at the head of the Malfoy table, atop my throne of wailing portraits, and watched my recently freed followers. Rookwood was struggling to Imperio a spoon. The Lestrange brothers had slipped under the tablecloth, hissing at anyone who came too close. Hagrid was looking about as if he'd never seen any of us before and had been incredibly violent until Severus reminded him of his status. They'd entered Azkaban as perfectly competent, if slightly sociopathic, followers and left it as raving lunatics. Bellatrix, in contrast, had entered as a raving lunatic and left slightly mellowed. I took a bite of cake and then, slightly nauseous, set down my fork. Bellatrix. Yes, my love, I mean my lord, she crooned, batting her eyes. Unfortunately, some things even the Dementors cannot cure. Stop dosing Darby's cakes with love potion. I like cake. Dose something I like slightly less, such as the turkey. But everyone eats the turkey, Bellatrix whined. I raised an eyebrow, baffled. Then one of them might love you, I'm pretty sure that's what you want. She pouted, stealing a bite of my cake. I legitimately had no idea what she was upset about this time. I wasn't some sort of seer. I paused. Right, the prophecy. I should probably go get that. Plus, it would be a nice excuse to get Bellatrix out of the house and finally have some cake that hadn't been tampered with. Bellatrix, I said, I need you to break into the Department of Mysteries. Try to be subtle about it, will you? Neville, Hermione said, staring coolly down the sword pointed at her nose. Really? Neville flushed, stumbling backwards into the room of requirement and dropping the sword of Gryffindor. I'm sorry, it's just. Harry, she raised a hand to silence him and stalked forward. Hermione hissed, Harry James Potter, what are you doing? Neville is dropping from the ceiling to attack people. Umbridge is prowling the school looking for you. And why is there a phoenix on your head? I reached upwards to pat Fawkes, grateful for the invisible glove charm which protected me from his bites. Yeah, he's been following me around for a while. I asked Dumbledore, and he said something about migratory patterns. He might think I'm another phoenix or something. Dumbledore wasn't very clear. He never is. I think he's trying to build a nest from my hair. Ginevra chirped, rubbing her bald spot. I smiled. Now, Hermione, what's got you so upset? She grabbed her wand, snarling. I just told you. Well, what was the first thing that upset you? That's usually the only one that matters. Hermione said, Malfoy tried to arrest me for being your friend or something like that. Apparently that's against one of Umbridge's new rules. I raised an eyebrow. You escaped. No, I'm secretly Umbridge polyjuiced as Hermione Granger, she said flatly. My eyes widened. That's what I get for trusting Neville with our defense. I raised my wand. Sarcasm, she shouted. I eyed her suspiciously, peering into her eyes for signs of the imperious. Atop my skull, Fawkes did the same. Right, if she used polyjuice, Umbridge would turn into your true, older form. Honestly, Harry. I am not a spy. I banished Malfoy on top of the lake and came straight here. They did get more water in that lake, right? Because it's really deep, the phoenix trilled in agreement. Ginevra called from across the room. The lake's been full for over a year. You just don't go outside. And Malfoy can swim, I inquired. Hermione pursed her lips. Well, if he can't, I imagine he'll learn. I placed a hand on her shoulder. Hermione, I'm concerned about how emotionally invested you're getting in this relationship. I'm starting to think that you're not in love with Malfoy after all. Hermione gaped. Why did you ever think that? I hated to ask this question so bluntly, especially considering the possible damage even voicing the possibility could do to her reputation, but I had to be sure. Is Draco Malfoy your rival? She carefully evaded the question, confirming my worst fears. I just think he's an awful person. So that's a yes. You can do better than that, I said, despairing. Malfoy is pathetic. Treating him as any sort of equal reflects poorly on you and everyone you associate with. Primarily me. You're kidding me, she said. He's not. Ginevra cried, causing Fawkes to flap his wings menacingly. I said my rival, for instance, is the Dark Lord Voldemort. He tries to kill you, Hermione said. He's not your rival. Snape, then, I acquiesced. Previously it was Dumbledore. Can do better, maybe Neville. Hermione glanced towards Neville, who had once again scaled the wall and was fiercely watching the door. Harry, I don't want a rival. If I was in your shoes, I would be doubtful too, I reassured her. But Neville is really improving. I think the two of you would be good for each other. No, I seriously don't want one. Also, I like Neville. With a panicked look, she hastily added, he's my friend. I chuckled. Not a problem. Plenty of people don't like Neville. You can ask them about it. No. Also, you never did explain why he's guarding the door, Hermione said. I twirled my wand, smirking. We're expecting an attack. The twins again. No, not a Weasley this time. Ginevra's contacts have informed us that we have a leak. One of the Ravenclaws has gone rogue. Umbridge could arrive any minute. A minute later, Umbridge stormed through the door, and the Phoenix dived forward, talons extended.